Disney's Mulan made headlines over the weekend with a premium video-on-demand release via Disney+. Basically, for a one-time $30 fee, subscribers could stream the live-action blockbuster spectacular in the comfort of their own living room, or wherever you want to watch it that's probably not a public space at the moment. Although other titles like Trolls World Tour or Bill and Ted Face the Music had skipped cinemas for streaming, Mulan represents a potential game changer because it is the first time that a live-action tentpole on this scale has been released in this manner. With a projected budget somewhere between $200 and $290 million, this is a big deal. However, the domestic release of Mulan is only half the battle. Mulan reportedly has the highest budget of any of Disney's live-action adaptations of their classic animated movies, and not because its domestic gross will outpace The Lion King or Beauty and the Beast. Mulan is a transparent play for the Chinese box office, which has become increasingly important to studios in the past couple of years. In fact, Chinese box office returns surpassed those in America for the first time in February 2016. The movie has consciously been tailored for a presumed Chinese audience, especially state censors. Lead actor Liu Yifei has been criticized for her support of law enforcement during the recent Hong Kong protests, but this only makes her movie stardom more appealing to the Chinese state. It's notable that state-sponsored social media accounts critiquing the protests have also been sending out #SupportMulan messages. Even just watching the live-action adaptation in comparison to the earlier animated original, it is possible to see how the narrative has shifted to make the story more palatable to Chinese state censors. Disney has blamed the removal of the film's romantic subplot on the emergence of the Me Too movement in America, complaining that it is inappropriate for a general to have an affair with one of his subordinates. However, it's also notable that the romance in Mulan, where a straight man falls for a woman who presents herself as a man, is arguably the queerest love story in the Disney canon. Chinese censors traditionally frown on same-sex content, both internally and externally. While gay subtext, including the blink and you miss it representation, The Rise of Skywalker, and we're just going to rerun that there, just rewind it back there. Yep, that's it, right there. That's it. That's the moment. That's the gay moment there, yep. Enjoy it, savor it. While moments like that made it past Chinese censors, Disney may simply have decided to avoid taking the risk in the first place. It's also notable that the live-action film omits the sequence from the animated movie that involves a group of male soldiers infiltrating the Imperial City in drag, which is arguably the culmination of the movie's subversion of gendered norms.
Concubines. Ugly concubines.
However, this is just the result of larger trends, as Hollywood has spent the past couple of years trying to open itself up to the Chinese market. Much has been written about how major studios have overtly pandered to China, such as adding an entire subplot to the Chinese version of Iron Man 3 featuring local actors, or turning the climax of Transformers Age of Extinction into an exploration of how big government is evil, unless of course it's the Chinese government of Hong Kong, in which case it's all okie dokie and possibly the most efficient government in the history of mankind. Chinese and American cinema are cross-pollinating. Matt Damon famously starred in the Chinese blockbuster The Great Wall. Christian Bale famously lent his credibility to the Chinese prestige picture The Flowers of War. Sylvester Stallone less famously starred in the direct-to-video Escape Plan 2, a movie about how your Chinese-manufactured phone is so secure that it couldn't be hacked, even if the inventor of that phone was thrown in a dungeon and tortured in order to force him to hack it. Contemporary Chinese blockbuster cinema is interesting, in large part because it feels like it's a Chinese attempt to emulate the American propaganda of the 1980s. Films like Rocky IV or Rambo 3. It is very much about presenting an image of China to foreign audiences. To pick an example from recent years, China Salesman stars Steven Seagal and Mike Tyson in a story about a Chinese trade delegation in Africa trying desperately to prevent evil European capitalists from sparking civil war and ethnic cleansing. However, China is already having an impact on the shape and flow of Hollywood movies. Films like Warcraft and Pacific Rim were domestic flops, but earned enough in China to justify sequels. It has been suggested that modern blockbusters are moving away from dialogue because it doesn't translate as well as action for foreign markets. Appeals to the Chinese box office may even explain why modern blockbusters are so sexless, as it has been speculated that romance does not translate that well. Some of the changes that are made to appease Chinese censors are relatively harmless, such as the removal of some dirty washing from the Shanghai sequence in Mission Impossible 3. Others are more worrying, such as the uncritical embrace of China's territorial claim over the South China Sea in Abominable. However, the most worrying aspect of all this is that it's nothing new. This is simply an acceleration of forces that have been in motion for decades. Indeed, the Chinese release of Mulan is something of a triumphant moment for Disney. The studio had been trying to make inroads into the country since the mid-90s, when The Lion King became a breakout hit. By 1996, the studio was planning to open a new theme park in southern China, something equivalent to an Asian Euro Disney. While the animated Mulan was never specifically designed to appeal to the emerging Chinese audience, the studio was still eager for it to open in that market and to win that audience over. Then Touchstone Pictures, a Disney subsidiary, gave Martin Scorsese $28 million to make a biopic of the 14th Dalai Lama.
Kundun! I liked it!
Kundun is one of the most beautiful and esoteric films in Martin Scorsese's filmography. It is shot by the wonderful Roger Deakins, who earned his 3rd Oscar nomination for his work on it. It has a soundtrack from Philip Glass, which is beautiful both in and out of context. It is also a rich exploration of themes that simmer across Scorsese's filmography, echoing Last Temptation of Christ and prefiguring silence. It was part of a wave of films about China and Tibet in the late 1990s, including 7 Years in Tibet and Red Corner. In response to Kundun, China cut business ties with Disney. There's actually a political term for this. China calls it killing the chicken to scare the monkey. The idea was that by scaring Disney, China would worry all of Hollywood and force Hollywood to move away from exploring Tibetan themes and Tibetan iconography in their cinema, and perhaps adopt a more flattering portrayal of China itself. They delayed the release of the animated Mulan into the middle of the following school year, allowing pirate videos to circulate. As a result, the animated movie flopped. Disney caved. They hired Henry Kissinger, yes, that Henry Kissinger, to run a charm offensive on China. They killed the movie's publicity campaign and opened Kundun domestically opposite Titanic. You know, the biggest movie of all time. In 1998, Disney CEO Michael Eisner apologized to China directly, stating, "The bad news is that the film was made. The good news is that nobody watched it." As such, the Chinese theatrical release of Mulan represents the culmination of Disney's journey back from that fiasco. Disneyland Shanghai opened in June 2016, only 20 years after the studio had originally planned to open a theme park in China. At time of writing, Kundun is one of the few major Martin Scorsese films that is not available to stream online, not even on Disney+. But hey, Mulan is. For a one-time fee. I've been Darren Mooney, and this was In the Frame.